VCY America presents Crosstalk, a nationwide call-in program discussing issues that have an effect on our families, our communities, our churches, our nation, and our world. Crosstalk, an opportunity for you to voice your concerns for biblical principles. And now live by satellite and around the world on the internet at vcyamerica.org. Here is today's Crosstalk.
Well, thank you for joining us today. It's our privilege to have you with us on Crosstalk, now in the new year, coming up very shortly. But news doesn't stand still during the holidays, and I want to share this story with you, first of all, before we get into our program and introduce you to our guest. Many of us have been praying for Pastor Yousef Nadarkhani, who was, remember, imprisoned. He was allegedly, he had been, they claimed he had defected from Islam, or that he had turned away from it and that was worthy of death. Well, remember the issue now where he had been released. He had been released and apparently pardoned. But Christian Pastor Yousef Nadarkhani was reportedly rearrested and imprisoned on Christmas Day in Iran. Now, Pastor Yousef had been imprisoned under a death sentence for apostasy for nearly 3 years before being acquitted and released in September. Now, in a clearly malicious move, Pastor Yousef was torn away from his wife and 2 young boys on Christmas Day. And Fox News confirms Yousef Nadarkhani, 35 years old, had been summoned to return back to Lacan prison, the facility where he had served time, and was then released based on the charge that he must complete the remainder of his sentence, according to several reports confirmed by those close to Nadarkhani in Iran. The Iranian court has ordered that he serve the remaining 45 days of his sentence, which he previously had been told he would serve under probation. And so we have another reason to pray for a clergyman here who has been really faced with persecution for his faith. And does that give you another taste of the religious tolerance of Iran? Today it's our privilege to have with us David Rubin. He is no stranger to this program. He is the former mayor of Shiloh, Israel. He's the founder and president of Shiloh Israel Children's Fund, which treats children who are victims of terror, and he and his own child experienced that terror. He's also the author of Islamic Tsunami, Israel and America in the Age of Obama. He is in Israel right now where it's 10 p.m., and joins us today, and I say welcome, David. It's good to have you back.
Well, thank you. Good to be with you, Vic.
David, there's so many things that are happening. Recently, the United Nations voted to recognize a Palestinian state. What does this decision from the UN mean, and what does it not mean?
Well, it really depends on how we react to it. Mm-hmm. Yes, of course, it means that the world is taking another step in the direction of granting full recognition to this fictional state that they're calling Palestine, which is basically a hostile terrorist state. It consists of mainly 3 different terrorist organizations: the Fatah terrorist organization, which is Yasser Arafat's old organization, and Mahmoud Abbas's organization. And then, of course, we have the Hamas terrorists, who are basically an extension of the Muslim Brotherhood. And then finally we have an organization with the nice, that delightful, death-loving name of Islamic Jihad, meaning Islamic holy war against all Jews, all Christians, and anyone else who doesn't believe in Islam. So that's who they are trying to create a state for. They want to create this state of Palestine, even though the Palestinians are, as Newt Gingrich once said, an invented people, and he said it well. so I'm quoting him even though he's not running for president anymore. And so that's the reality. We're talking about a band of terrorists that are being gradually granted statehood by the family of nations.
Now, just last week, the UN Secretary General devoted part of his year-end press conference basing Israel for its announcement of plans to build new housing in and around Jerusalem. He claimed that the Israeli announcement was a near-fatal blow to a very fragile Middle East peace process. What's your reaction to that?
Well, that just shows you where the values of the UN are. I look at the world, a world that seems to have lost its values, that seems to be losing its sense of morals, and I look at the head of the UN, the head of the so-called family of nations, and I say, what is this guy talking about? He'll completely ignore when Hamas terrorists are smuggling in weapons through tunnels from Egypt, that weapons that they use against Israel, that they use to fire missiles on Israeli cities, that they use to launch terrorist attacks with assault rifles that they smuggle out of Gaza. This is going on all the time. But what does the UN Secretary General have to criticize? He criticizes that a family is building a house on a hilltop where nobody else lives. I mean, it's absolutely absurd, and it would be comical if it wasn't tragic that the genie and the ghost of anti-Semitism is really showing its face, its ugly face in the UN. What can I say? It's just it's a sad path that the world has taken.
Now, the Secretary General said that Israel should open its borders to more than 100,000 Palestinians fleeing a refugee camp in Syria so that they can safely reach the West Bank and Gaza by going through Israel. What does this do to risk Israel's security?
Well, it's a very interesting proposal. He wants to have them like Israel not only has to exist as a country the size of Delaware, with countries around it that are hostile and want to destroy it. They're about 500 times the landmass of Israel. And where do they want to send those refugees from Syria, from Arab Muslim oppression? They want to send them to Israel, so they can use them as another tool to destroy Israel. Well, Israel has been very welcoming of refugees over the years, and you might recall the Vietnamese boat people. Mm-hmm. Our shores were opened up to quite a number of them. We've also, of course, over the past 7 decades, have welcomed in hundreds of thousands of Jewish refugees from the Arab countries, from Europe, and all of these people were welcomed into Little Israel. There's a limit. We're not going to allow ourselves to be exploited. We're not going to allow ourselves to be used as pawns in a game of our own destruction. We're not going to play that game.
Now, there are those who are trying to have the International Criminal Court pursue criminal charges against Israel to stop settlement activities. Will this deter Israel? No, it won't. Look, there is always that threat, but we get to a certain point where we have to look at that expression from our first prime minister, who said it doesn't matter what the Gentiles say. What matters is what Israel does. Mm-hmm.
and what matters is what Jews do. Basically, that was the exact quote.
Sure.
And that's really true. I mean, Israel was established so that we wouldn't have to be dependent on what all the nations of the world say. And frankly, Israel was established. There are a lot of Jews who don't know it, but Israel was established so that we will pay attention to what the Almighty says.
Yeah.
We pay attention to what God says, and we do have a covenantal relationship with the Almighty. And I think it's time that we stop being ashamed of it and stop being afraid to talk about it. Israel is a chosen people, and we were chosen by God for an awesome responsibility to be a light unto the nations. Amen. And that's something that we need to pay attention to in these times, and stop paying attention to the UN.
You know, there's talk by the president that President Obama will nominate Chuck Hagel to be the next Secretary of Defense to replace Leon Panetta. And if such a pick is confirmed, will this affect anything as far as the relationships with Israel?
Oh, it'll certainly affect the relationship with Israel. Not that the man at the top of the helm is so friendly towards Israel. But look, Chuck Hagel has never lost an opportunity to blast Israel, or to help those that are trying to hurt Israel, or not to help Israel itself. In the Senate, when senators want to make their opinion clear to the president, they usually pass around a letter. And they sign the letter, passing a Senate resolution saying that they approve of a certain presidential action, or they have a certain foreign policy statement. So, very often letters are passed around supporting Israel, or saying that they support Israel's right to defend itself, or various letters of that kind. Chuck Hagel has never lost an opportunity not to sign a letter like that. He's very often been the only one in the Senate, or one of very few senators that do not sign pro-Israel letters. But he did find the time and the effort to sign a letter saying that the United States should open up peace talks and negotiate with the Hamas terrorists. I'll just point out one more thing about Chuck Hagel. He was praised by CARE, which, for those of your listeners who don't know, is the Council of American Islamic Relations. It's a profoundly anti-Israel and I might say anti-American organization, which is run by Muslim fundamentalists. And I'll tell you this, and I wrote about this in my book, The Islamic Tsunami: Israel and America in the Age of Obama, is the subtitle. In the Islamic Tsunami, I wrote about CARE, and I quoted the chairman of CARE, who said that Muslims are not in the United States just to be loyal citizens, but they are in the United States to turn the United States into an Islamic civilization.
We're going to be right back in 60 seconds. We'll be right back. This is Crosstalk.
Back to Genesis with Dr. John Morris, Noah's Ark researcher at the Institute for Creation Research. Dr. Morris, was the ark really big enough to carry two of every kind of animal?
Chris, the Bible says that the ark was 450 feet long, 75 feet wide, and 45 feet high. God told Noah to build it with 3 decks and make it to house all the animals. Chris, this is a huge boat. Only in recent centuries have people built cargo ships this large. But the real question is, was it big enough to hold all the animals? Studies have shown that 2 of every kind, not necessarily species, but kind of animal, could be housed on about 1/3 the volume of Noah's Ark. It was a huge ship, big enough to carry food and allow for exercise on board. Everything about the Ark and flood stories have stood the test of scrutiny. God is a very capable ship designer, and he did just that back in Genesis.
For more information, visit our website at icr.org.
And welcome back to Crosstalk, where today we're talking with David Rubin, the former mayor of Shiloh, Israel. He is the founder and president of Shiloh, Israel's Children Fund, which treats children who are victims of terror. And he also, along with his little 3-year-old child, went through some of that horrendous terrorism. He's the author of the book entitled The Islamic Tsunami, Israel and America in the Age of Obama. It's a book I believe you can get through Amazon. David, can you? Is there other sources that they can get it rather than Amazon as well?
Sure. They can go to Amazon.com. It's usually very easy. It's also available in many bookstores, or you can just dial a 24-hour toll-free number, which is 1-800-431-1579. I'll just repeat that, 1-800-431-1579. You just tell them that you want the Islamic Tsunami by David Rubin, and if you're prepared with a credit card, it'll be a 1, 2, 3 thing, and they'll have it out to you.
Now, it's been reported that the Egyptian military is considering remilitarizing the Sinai Peninsula. And some are claiming that Egypt is arming itself for an attack against Israel. Are these vicious rumors, or are they valid?
Well, look, there's no possibility of Israel attacking Egypt. Israel doesn't look to attack other countries. Israel does look to defend itself, and if in some cases, like in the Six-Day War in 1967, when all of those countries attack Israel, Israel happens to recapture some of its biblical heartland. Those who attacked Israel are only to blame. But as for Egypt, the way things are with Egypt today, the peace treaty between Israel and Egypt that was signed by Anwar Sadat and Menachem Begin years ago, it still exists. It hasn't been formally broken, but the relationship has chilled quite a bit. It's become a very cold peace, since the Muslim Brotherhood took power in Egypt. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if you heard in the news, but just yesterday, the results of the recent referendum have come out, and nearly 65% of Egyptians voted to pass the new constitution, which
Sharia law?
Establishes Sharia law officially in Egypt. And for those of your listeners who don't know, Sharia law means that there is no religion that is to be respected in Egypt other than Islam. And the 20% of Egyptians who are Christian are very, very concerned about that as we speak.
Well, and we've seen already many of the Coptic Christians suffering a lot of persecution. It appears that the U.S. is helping Egypt, even in spite of all this, by giving them F-16 fighter jets as a part of our $1 billion U.S. foreign air package. Now, this evidently is fulfilling a promise when Hosni Mubarak was in power. But now that the Muslim Brotherhood has control, does this still go through? Isn't this kind of a mixed bag?
Well, in a free society, there is something called precedent, and if a previous government has agreed to a deal and it's been granted to that previous administration, so a new administration comes in, usually respect that. However, here we're not talking about a normal situation. We're talking about the Muslim Brotherhood. The Muslim Brotherhood is not a pro-American organization. I remember when the Islamic Revolution in Egypt took place, and going back about a year, and President Obama was interviewed, and he said, "Well, there are some strains of anti-Americanism in the Muslim Brotherhood." Well, I'm sorry to say there are a little bit more than strains of anti-Americanism in that organization. Either President Obama is being totally insincere, or he just doesn't know what he's talking about. And my impression is that it's probably, unfortunately, the former. The Muslim Brotherhood has called for
Are you still there, David?
Yes, I'm still here.
Okay, we had a little.
The Muslim Brotherhood has called for the elimination and the destruction of Western civilization from within. This is a clearly anti-American organization, and it's not just anti-Israel. It is very, very clearly anti-American, as any jihadist organization will be, because a jihadist organization believes in holy war against all Jews, holy war against all Christians, and holy war against anyone who is not a Muslim. I really can't repeat that enough. It needs to be repeated. It needs to be very clear for people who don't want to accept it and don't want to understand it. All they have to do is just Google the project Muslim Brotherhood, and they will find it word for word.
Last week, the chief of Israel's Air Force warned that the Shiite terrorist group, Hezbollah, was preparing to battle against Israel. Now, is there any update on this threat?
Well, the Hezbollah are the Shiite Muslims in Lebanon. Mm-hmm. The Shiite Muslim terrorist organization in Lebanon. It's called Hezbollah, which means the Army of Allah. And so we have the Sunni Muslim terrorists in the south from Gaza, and that's the Hamas. We have the Shiite Muslims, the terrorist organization in Lebanon, which is the Hezbollah, and the two of them are working together. The people sometimes say, well, take a look at Syria, where Assad, who is Alawite, which is just an offshoot of Shiite Islam, that he is fighting against the Sunni Muslim rebels. So we say, well, Sunnis and Shiites don't get along. Well, it's true that in a lot of places in the Middle East they don't get along. But when it comes to Hamas and Hezbollah, well, they do get along. They're cooperating against Israel. And this is what's going on. So they have tons of missiles. I mean, we're talking about somewhere between 100 and 200,000 missiles being pointed at Israel as we speak. And it's a very, very dangerous situation that at some point Israel is going to have to deal with. And we didn't deal with it properly in Gaza just a couple of months ago, when the terrorists were firing missiles at Israeli cities. We went in. We went down to Gaza. We launched air attacks, and eventually, under pressure from Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama, we agreed to a ceasefire. A very serious mistake, because it's just kind of kicking the can down the road, and we're going to have to face up to those multiple threats eventually, mainly from the Hezbollah in the north and Hamas in the south.
Well, now, there's another threat that's come about, and WND, or WorldNet Daily, reported that Iran has, I think they said, 170 ballistic missiles aimed at Tel Aviv, many of them with biological warheads. Can you comment on that threat?
Well, that's no surprise at all. We know what the Iranians are preparing for us. They are preparing death and destruction to the entire state of Israel. They've stated it very clearly. When they speak, I take their word for it. When somebody says, "I want to kill you," I don't look the other way. I can't afford to look the other way. And when I live in a country that's smaller than New Jersey, I can't afford to look the other way. So we have to defend ourselves, and we have to pay very close attention to these threats. And it doesn't matter what any world leaders tell us. We have to stand strong. We have to stand firm, and if necessary, we need to launch a preemptive strike. I don't think it's something that we can talk about and not act on at some point. We're probably going to have to do it, because I don't think anyone's going to do it for us.
Over the years, we've watched as Israel has, in many cases, I think of the 6 Day War, where it was miraculous how God protected the nation, and even in their battling, some of the primitive tools they used ended up bringing them victory. But when I think of the technology that's out there today, and I'm sure Israel is staying on the cutting edge with technology as well, with the threat of these biological warheads, which literally can devastate and destroy people on a continuing basis, sarin gas, all this stuff is deadly. What I guess the question, someone said this, is Israel going to attack? And someone else responded that it's not if, it's when.
Well, I would agree with that. We have an expression in the Talmud: if somebody comes to kill you, kill him first. And this is clearly the situation that we're in, where we have this Iranian monster who's coming to destroy us, and we're going to have to stop him, and we have to do it before they do it to us. Look, we did it in Iraq, we did it in Syria. And it seems like this is going to be another situation where it's just going to have to happen. I don't believe that President Obama is going to attack another Islamic nation. I think he's been averse to it from the beginning. In Afghanistan, he was averse to it in Iraq, and I don't think he's going to start a new one.
I'll tell you, one of the interesting things, and I know we're coming up on a break here, but the tragic event of Sandy Hook Elementary School, which claimed the lives of many innocent kids. And here we've learned a report published by Iran's press, TV, alleges that the horrific attack in the Connecticut school should not be attributed to a lone gunman, but instead should be blamed on what they called the rightful instigator, Jerusalem. The report said the rage of Israel against Barack Obama and America was the reason the attack was carried out. When we come back, I'd like your response on that, because this is unbelievable, the lengths that these people will go to paint with their brush annihilation and the destruction of Israel. Our guest today, David Rubin. We'll be right back.
Can God be tempted? Why don't Christians follow all the Old Testament laws? Did animal sacrifices remove sin? Did Jesus contradict himself by calling people fools? These are just a few of the 40 issues addressed in the book Demolishing Supposed Bible Contradictions, Volume 2. This book defends the authority of the Bible and offers a solid foundation for those with doubts. Sadly, we are living in a climate where skeptics disregard God's Word, and even believers are doubting the inerrancy of Scriptures. Answers in Genesis staff, Ken Ham, Bodie Hodge, and Tim Chaffee, have put together a number of biblical responses to prove the Bible is accurate and without error. Demolishing Supposed Bible Contradictions, Volume 2, is available for a donation of $15 or more to VCY America by calling 1-800-729-9829. Or if you'd like both Volume 1 and Volume 2, the set is available for a donation of $26. Call 1-800-729-9829.
And welcome back to Crosstalk, where today our guest is David Rubin. He is the former mayor of Shiloh, Israel. He is the founder and president of Shiloh Israel Children's Fund, which treats children who are victims of terror. And, folks, there are many of those. He's the author of the book Islamic Tsunami, Israel and America in the Age of Obama. And you need to get a copy of that book and understand in depth what is going on here. Now, as I mentioned, David, just before the break, this issue where Sandy Hook Elementary School, this issue with 26 people being killed, and here Islam, Iran's press, alleges that the horrific act at the Connecticut school should not be attributed to a lone gunman, but instead should be blamed on what they called the rightful instigator, Jerusalem. Your response?
My response is that you can say anything. They don't have to back it up. They can just throw it out there and say whatever they want to say. You know, we've had famous anti-Semitic.
Still there, David? Hello, David? Okay. David, still there? Okay, our line's interrupted between here and Israel. We'll dial back, and in a moment hopefully we'll have David back again. It's 10 o'clock in Israel, and interesting enough, twice now in the broadcast the line's interrupted, which are rather strange. But we will look forward to getting in touch with him momentarily here as we continue on the topic here. And in a few moments, we're going to we'll open the lines now. If you'd like to get online with your questions for David Rubin, who is with us, you're welcome to call in now and get online with questions for him about Israel, about what's happening, as well as assuring him if you're praying for Israel and praying for the peace of Israel, your call is most welcome. David, do we have you back?
Yes, I'm with you.
Good. I don't know what's going on the lines, but it interrupted there for a bit. That's
okay. But what I was saying is that we face worse
Okay, David, still there?
Yeah. I don't react to statements that are made by anti-Semites, by anti-Israel, anti-Jewish people. They're going to say what they want to say. They can go ahead and say it, and if they want to say it to me, well, I'm happy to cross-examine them on it, and let's hear them back it up. But look, what happened in Sandy Hook is obviously a great tragedy, and I think that we can look at Israel for some guidance on how to deal with these situations and possibly prevent them from happening in the future.
Now, folks, we have the lines open right now. If you'd like to join us and talk with David, you're welcome to call 800-733-9829, 800-733-9829 from anywhere on the planet. It's toll-free. And also, I want to mention again the Islamic Tsunami. This is the book Israel and America in the Age of Obama. And there's a 800 number which you can use to acquire it with your credit card. It's 800-431-1579. That's 1-800-431-1579. Or you can go to Amazon.com. If you'd like to go to the website, www.islamic-tsunami, that's TSUNAMI.com. Our lines here are jammed. And so, Jeff, in Milwaukee, you are on the air with David Rubin.
Hi, David. My question is, WikiLeaks had exposed that in order to invade or to bomb Iran, Israel needs the bunker-busting bombs. Obama wouldn't allow that, he said, until after the elections. And now that he's been reelected, do you know whether or not he has yet authorized the sale of the bunker-busting bombs to Israel?
I haven't heard anything of that. Right now, Israel is very involved in its own election campaign, so I haven't heard. I don't have any information on that. Let's say.
Thank you, David. Thank you, Jeff, for calling. Let's go to Charlie in Wisconsin. Charlie, you're on the air. Hello, Charlie.
Yes, this is Charlie. I'm a Vietnam veteran, and I'm Armenian by heritage. And a lot of my family members were killed by the Turks, which are also Muslim. So I think the Jews and Armenians have very much in common. It's just a shame that people can't wake up to what's really happening. It seems like it's a great delusion where people's eyes are closed. I want to tell David that I love the Jewish people. I love Israel. And shalom to him. God bless him richly. Thank you.
David, you heard.
Yes, I'd like to say something. In the Islamic Tsunami, I have an entire section where I spoke about the massacre of the Armenians, and it's probably I don't use the word Holocaust lightly, but it was as close as you can come to a Holocaust. 2 million Armenians were killed by Muslims, and this took place we're talking about 20 years or less before the actual Holocaust, and Adolf Hitler learned from that event. Adolf Hitler learned that, yes, it is possible to kill 2 million people, to massacre 2 million people simply because of who they are, and get away with it. And the Armenian Holocaust, the slaughter of 2 million Armenians, is something that has kind of been buried. The Islamic world says that it's forbidden to speak about it. Anytime a country tries to pass a resolution in its parliament condemning the massacre of the Armenians, the Islamic nations are up in arms. And pressure from the Islamic world that it's not supposed to be known to the world what actually happened. So I agree with everything the caller said, and I thank him for the blessings and the prayers, and believe me, I'm not one who hides that history.
Let's go to John in West Milwaukee. And, John, you're on the air with David Rubin.
Afternoon, at least in our time. I don't know what it is over there.
It's about 10.
Good evening to you.
It's 10:30 over there.
10:30, okay. In any case, I was wondering what the future of Netanyahu looks like. I heard that there's an election coming about, and he's not going to be running.
Well, the first part of what you said is correct. The last part is not. He's running full force. The elections are on January 22nd, and according to all the surveys and all the polls, his political party will be the largest vote getter, and the right-leaning parties in the Israeli parliament will be the strongest ones, and we'll have a clear majority in the Israeli parliament, in the Israeli, what we call the Knesset. That's how it's looking right now.
Let's go to Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and talk with John. John, you're on the air.
Yeah, I was going to state I'm a lover of Israel too. But Israel hasn't, presented their case very well either in the UN body or in the Congress. When the Prime Minister had the opportunity to address the Congress several months ago, where he had thunderous applause for 28 times or something, he should have given the history of Israel so that the whole Congress and the people in the United States would have heard how Islam came and occupied Israel, butchering Jews and Christians, and building their Al-Azhar mosque there where the temple was. And this history had to be taught. When he spoke at the UN early this year, he should have done the same thing there too, so that the world body would know the history of Israel. This is their land. God-given land. Muslims came over, butchered the people, and occupied the land. Now they had the opportunity to take it back, and they have done it, and no compromise, no way they will give the land back.
David.
All I can say to that is amen. I don't think that we should give away 1 inch of our God-given land. And I think that the caller said it just as well as I could have.
Thank you, John. Let's go to Jenny in Reedsburg, Wisconsin. And Jenny, you're on the air. Hello, Jenny.
Hi. I was just wondering if any of the Muslim countries there attack Israel or attack Jerusalem, won't they be destroying some of their holy places? And how does that fit into their the religion, if they even how that works anyway? I'll just hang up and let you answer online. Okay?
Thanks, Jenny.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you, Jenny. I'll tell you, I don't think that they really care about that. I mean, I remember some time ago when the terrorists were holed up in the church in Bethlehem. They frequently hide out in churches and in mosques, but because they don't have any respect for holy places. They'll have launching pads for missiles inside their mosques. Let's be honest about it, okay? We were talking before. You were asking me, Vic, about the Iranian statements about Israel, and all the things that Israel has done. Well, they also speak about how the so-called Palestinians speak about the alleged temple. On the Temple Mount. A lot of people should know that the mosque that is on the Temple Mount, is actually on the temple. It's on the ruins of the first and the second.
David, there?
Yes,
okay.
It's on the ruins of the first and the second temple. Mm-hmm. And I think people need to know that. It's when everyone was talking about the World Trade Center mosque and Islamic Center, it wasn't an accident that they were trying to build it on top of the ruins of 9/11. Yeah. They've always done this historically. They did it on Temple Mount. They did it on the tomb of Samuel the prophet. They're always building mosques on top of the holy places of other religions.
We're going to be right back in 60 seconds. Our guest today, David Rubin. I hope you'll get his book, The Islamic Tsunami, Israel and America in the Age of Obama. We'll be right back right after this. Our phone number, 800-733-9829.
For the Worldview Weekend Minute, I'm Brandon House. Our website is worldviewweekend.com. I believe the re-election of President Barack Obama is just one more sign of many that God is judging America. Romans 1 describes that God will give over nations that reject him over and over again. I believe that is happening. I believe, however, we cannot blame only the secular world for God judging America. I believe many evangelical and new religious right leaders bear a lot of responsibility for the re-election of President Obama. Why do I say that? Because 2 Corinthians chapter 6, verse 17 makes it very clear that if self-professing Christians do not enter into spiritual enterprise and service with non-believers, then God will receive them or welcome them or have favor on them. I believe many evangelical leaders have entered into one spiritual enterprise after another with non-believers, and as a result, God is not showing favor on our nation.
And welcome back to Crosstalk, where today our guest is David Rubin. It's about 10:45 in the evening in Israel. He's with us today. He was the former mayor of Shiloh, Israel. He's the founder and president of Shiloh Israel's Children's Fund, which treats children who are victims of terror. And he's the author of the book, The Islamic Tsunami, Israel and America in the Age of Obama. And if you're interested in getting it, there's an 800 number, 800-431-1579. That's 800-431-1579, or you can go to Amazon.com. It's David Rubin, that's spelled R-U-B-I-N, and you've heard the name of the book, Tsunami, Israel and America in the Age of Obama. It's a book you need to read. Let's go to Newport, Oregon, on the west coast of the United States, and you're on the air with David today, and that is Sandra. Sandra, go ahead.
Yes, just before a break, David had said something about Israel being able to help the United States prevent those Sandy Hook type things. And I would be really interested in hearing.
Well, you're talking right to him, okay?
Okay, David, thank you. I'd like to
Yes.
do that. Okay.
Okay, so I'm happy to elaborate on that a bit. Well, I think there are short-term solutions and there are long-term solutions, and I think that we in Israel have a lot to contribute towards that. And well, first of all, in Israel, there is an armed guard at the entrance to every school, and they stand at the gate. And there are times when they're walking around the school area and the school grounds, and at that point the gate is locked. Every single school in Israel has an armed guard, and that is a requirement by law. That the school has to provide an armed guard, and frankly, it does prevent terrorism, and it does provide a sense of security for the children and for the people. That doesn't mean that they check children as they go in. Children don't get patted down as they go into the school. The guard gets to know everybody, and nobody has to go through a check if they know who the person is. It's, Israeli security is common sense security. It's not just you have a checklist and you check it off, and all you have to do is look in airports to know that. Anyone who's been on a flight to Israel where they question you and they're looking for certain things. So that's one short-term solution that should be implemented right away. In terms of long-term solutions, I think that we have to look a little bit deeper. In my opinion, the problem is that American society was once much closer connected to God and the biblical heritage of the United States, and with that always came a system of morals and values. And what happens is that when you remove that system, that biblical heritage of the system of morals and values based on God's eternal truths, you're creating a vacuum, of an incredibly dangerous and insecure vacuum. And in that void, you have the family falling apart, and you have broken families and insecure children, and very often husbands and wives who have no idea what their role is supposed to be in these times. And so you have both parents out working full time. The children aren't getting the attention that they need, and they're being left alone in front of the computer with no controls and no screening, and the television, and they're being exposed to terrible violence and all kinds of other things. So it has to have its effect. It has to have its effect, and you put together with that this strange kind of worship, not of God, but of Hollywood celebrities who are busy having children with numerous different partners, and they're idolized in the media. So, should we wonder why our children are confused and angry and very often grow up to be confused and angry adults? I believe that in the long term, that's what all of these acts of violence comes from. It comes from a breakdown of society. Mm-hmm. And I think if we want to really solve the problem in the long term, we have to work on those deeper issues.
The Bible says, as a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. And as we realize our thought life determining our actions, is there any wonder that we're seeing this happen today? Thanks again, Sandra from Newport, Oregon. Very quickly, we've got about a minute and a half left. Mike in Marshfield, Wisconsin. You are on the air, Mike. Hello, Mike.
Thanks for taking my call. David, thank you for the work you've done. Just two quick questions. What is the likelihood that in Syria, Bashir Assad will take some action, maybe unleash some gas on Israel or somebody else just to take the focus off of himself? And how long could Israel possibly wait before they take action, say, with a preemptive strike on Iran?
Well, all I can do is assure you that the Israeli political leadership and military intelligence are watching both of those situations very, very closely. The situation with the Iranian nuclear program and their weapons of mass destruction, and the situation in Syria where the ample chemical weapon supply is being watched very carefully by Israel. It's not the Assad government is no friend of Israel, but neither is the opposition that President Obama has come out in support of. The opposition basically consists of Muslim rebels, a combination of Muslim Brotherhood and Al Qaeda, and these aren't friends of Israel. They're not friends of the West, and they need to be watched very carefully as well.
David, it's always a privilege to have you on Crosstalk, and we pray for the peace of Israel. I thank you for being with us today.
Well, thank you, Vic.
Thank you so much, and we'll look forward to visiting again soon.
Thank you. God bless.
Thank you so much, folks, for joining us on Crosstalk.
Listening to Crosstalk via satellite and the internet from VCY America. Views expressed may or may not be those of this station. For a CD of today's program, send a donation of $6 or more to VCY Tape Ministry, 3434 West Kilbourne Avenue, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, 53208, or download by RSS or podcast from crosstalkamerica.com. And join us again for Crosstalk.